In this video, I want to talk a little bit about groups and group syntax. How can we take advantage of syntax to create our groups more procedurally. So at the most basic level, you can select either points, edges, or primitives. And after that, just select and create a create group node. You can see it's basically going to copy inside the base group our primitive number, because every primitive polygon primitive face has its own unique number inside Houdini. Basically going to copy these inside the base group, and that's going to be our group. So what's cool about this, you can actually also write inside base group also attributes. So what I'm going to do is put down a connectivity node. The connectivity node is going to basically create a primitive attribute called class. You can see in here, going to give every connected geometry like that its own unique number, and we can reference this number inside our groups. So I'm going to turn out the primitives, and let's go here in display groups and attribute list. Go here and while you're in a primitive selection, go here in names in class. Now you can see it's basically, then you can go here in select groups or connected geometry. So this is going to select groups like that. You see every connected geometry has its own unique number. And let's say we want to select only the right side, and then it's to create group. You see it because we had in selection this class. We are selecting the class, it's automatically not the primitive numbers, but actually going to copy the class attribute. For now, let's just leave this graph alone, and let's put down a grid so I can better explain the basics of the syntax inside groups. So let's create some groups. I'm just going to duplicate, select another one. You see that some of the groups are actually intersecting, just totally fine, like that. So now you can see that we have these groups, and some of the polygons inside this object do not have any groups. So let's put down a group, and as the base group asterisk, you basically select everything, and if you put down a question mark before the asterisk, it's going to select everything that has a name grouped. And with this, once you have selected all the groups, you can actually put it inside its own group. So let's call it all groups, and yeah, you can see that we can now reference it to the all groups, and we don't have to actually reference it all of them individually. So this is going to be all groups like that. And what's cool about this, you can actually invert this selection. Let's just copy it again, and for us to invert it, let's go back to the syntax, and you can see that with this caret, which some circumflex, whatever it's called, basically with shift and 6, we can actually exclude some of the groups from our group node. Say that 10 times. So what we can do is basically, we know that this is basically our group that we want to exclude. All we have to do is now just put down asterisk in front of it, and question mark, and then the caret in front of the question mark and asterisk. You can see we have basically inverted it. So what we are saying, select all of them except for the whatever the groups that have name in it. Let's rename it now. It's rest of geo. So if you take a look at this group, and we, let's say, disable this one, go back to this, you can see it's selected all of the polygon that does not have any group in it. So that's incredibly powerful. You can even use it something like if you select groups and you know what you want, for example, like in here. So let's go back to our rubber toy, and we have this connectivity groups. Let's duplicate it. Let's reselect something else. Here we know that we want also a different group for this. Reselect for this. And now basically the same thing. If you want to adjust the rest of it, all we have to do is just do the same thing in here. Now we have our body. You can call it this as a body because we know that we have selected all of the rest of them, and then we just deselect everything that we have a name grouped. Also, this $sign and OS is basically saying you can manually type in group name, or you can take a group that has a node's name in it. So that's, I think it's actually by default inside Houdini, so that's $sign and OS is going to take the node's name as a group name. So that's very handy. You don't have to select it and go back on top of it and name them. You can just double click on groups names and just on node's name and name them whatever you want. But now what I have done is here I have named all of the groups of something that makes sense. So the right side, left side, the center fins, and the question mark that's going to be the body of its upper model. So let's say we want another group. Let's say I want to select only the left side group. Well, that will be pretty easy because we can just select the left side and that's it. But let's say we have on the left side, let's create two nodes that are left side. Let's delete one of these. There's going to be 0 in here and 2 in here. So you can see that now our left side is actually divided into two groups. And for us to reference it, we have to select both of these. So that's going to be kind of a hassle. So left side 1 and left side 2. 1 with 1 and without 1. So what we can do, we just put down a asterisk after the left. So we know that both of these has a left inside, so just put down a left and asterisk like that. So basically it's going to select everything that has a left in it, that starts with left. So we can even start with only the L. So we know the only group that starts with L is left side. So if we change from center with the put down L in front of it, you can see that now our group also includes the fins because the group also starts with L. So that's one thing to note, is that asterisk. So group name and asterisk basically say I want to select the groups that start with these with these letters like that. But what if we want to select all of the groups that's only with side, that starts with side? Let's say I want to select only the group that has side inside in it. So you can see it's not selecting anything because our groups do not start with the side in it. For us to select anything inside the group that starts with the side, we have to put down asterisks in both in the front and at the end of it. So now we are selecting all of the groups that has sides inside them. So these are the only the groups that have sides in them. So that's very useful to know. So let's say you want to select only all of that has a side except for the left side. So this is basically our first. We are selecting all the sides and then put down the caret. And then let's say we don't want anything that has a right in it. So let's put down asterisk 2 and right inside right like that. We can give the asterisk on both sides or only the one, because the group right starts with the right. So in this base group, what we are saying is give me all the groups that has side inside them anywhere in its name, except for the groups that starts with the right in it. So that's very useful to exclude some of the groups that you don't need. And of course, if you put down asterisks at the both sides, you can include any word inside any group. So let's say we don't want to, so we now selecting the ones with the side. Anywhere in the side, we know that we have 3 groups inside with side. In one of these groups, let's put down a word hello. And so if you put down in both at the start and end asterisk in the word hello, you see it's going to deselect it, because the asterisk in the front and the back is going to say exclude those who has this word in it. So that's very useful. So the takeaway is that asterisk at the end of it is the group starts with it, or the asterisk at the front and on the back means that anywhere in the group's name that word is. So that's we are selecting or deselecting, whether there's a caret or not in front of it. Now let's take a look at something else. One thing to note is that while you're inside the one geo node, the actual group names cannot actually be the same. So even though we are connected to the different models, let's say I want to call this also right side, this group. You see it's automatically gonna give a 1 at the end because we already have a right-sided group. So if I'm gonna call it right-sided 2, I can call it just a right-sided like that. So that's one thing to note, that whenever you see that you call it the group and it's gonna call it with a 1 or a number 10, you know that you already have that group with name in it inside the geo in this whole network that you're working on. So that's one thing to remember. Now let's take a look at some other thing. Let's say you want to select the right ones. Let's put down asterisk. Now let's say left also. You see we are to select both of them, we have to put down asterisks after every word. So that can be kind of annoying. So what we can do is actually put down these words inside a straight bracket. So these are just a regular straight one, not the curly ones. Just put down right, left, and after the brackets are closed, put down asterisks. You see it's going to be basically without us putting out asterisks after every word that we want to select. If we do not have many groups, we can just put down a one letter, let's say L, and we know that all of our groups start with either left, center, or with the B, or C, B, or L. So only with one letter, you can define all the left ones. And the center with the C, and the B with that one, with the B. So we want only left and right, so L and R. We're now selecting only the right and the left one groups, because we do not have any group that starts with these letters, so that's very handy. Now to show the square brackets in action, what I'm going to do is put down a new group, and what I'm going to write inside, I want to select the right and left, and after the square brackets, put down a asterisk. So now you can see that we are selecting all the groups that starts with right or left. But let's say we want to deselect two groups of both of these. So without the square brackets, you would have to manually put down on after each one of these. But with the square brackets, what we can do is put down a caret, then the asterisks, and in the asterisks put down a square bracket. And in it, let's just write down 2, like that, because we know that 2 is the only groups that has, because these two groups that we want to deselect only both of these has inside 2 of them. So, and with the asterisks at the front end and the end of it, it's going to look for any group that has 2 in it, and it's going to deselect them like that. Also, I almost forgot to mention that we can invert the selection with the exclamation mark. So let's say we want to select all the words with the groups in it. So let's put down a group. So now we have selected all the groups with the word group in it. Let's say I want to select all the invert the selection, so all the groups do not have a group in them. All we have to do is put down exclamation mark in front of it, like that. Basically, it's saying that do not select the groups that has the word group in it. And if we go to the put down the word rest, it's going to invert the selection like that. So that's the more easier way to invert our selections when we have name groups. What we can do also is create the patterns inside our base group with the simple syntax. So for us, let's select some of these polygons, and then what we can do is use a colon to say how many polygons we want to select. So if you put down a 2, it's basically we're going to select every second polygon. What's cool about this, you can also put down a kind of a pattern, how big of our pattern is. So if you go to the Houdini help is going to show that how many you want to keep and what's the steps. So for the keep is basically saying how many you want to take. We want how many polygons you want to select. Say let's see, we should select 6 or 3, and then it's with the comma it asks to how many steps. So basically 3, and with comma let's say our pattern will be 5 big. So you can see it's basically selecting 3 polygons from the pattern that is 5, and then it's going to repeat. And also we can also not with the base group we can also select just a asterisk like that. So that's going to perform everything on every object. But that can be kinda very hard to keep in mind what you're doing. So that's why it's actually cool node. There's a group, what's called, is group by range like that. So all we have to do, put it inside here. As a group is our default is select everything. You can see it's very basically doing the same thing as with the writing by hand. We can just with these sliders select our patterns, how big our pattern, how many we want to select. So that's very cool, and also we can use what kind of group it is. So let's put down a group before this. Let's select polygons like that. Let's select another one like that. And for our group, we can just put down a group asterisk like that. So that's now it's going to work only on the groups that we have selected like that. Group 3 and 4. So that's very cool. One thing to note that to my understanding these do not work. So at first I thought maybe we can create a pattern by referencing our groups. So I thought maybe we can just reference group 3 like that, and then we can just colon 2. But for my knowledge this do not work. It only works with the actual component numbers, with points or primitive numbers. It's even if you take the exclamation mark, if you take a look at this, it's going to say that it's invalid syntax, and it's going to give you example for the valid one. So basically if you want to arrange it, you just put down a group by range, and then you want to reference it, the group that you want to arrange, like I did before. Just put down a group 3 in a base group, in group by range. Just select the group 3 if you want to only work on that, and then we can select our pattern. It's going to work only on that group. And of course for the group, the syntax that I showed in this video all works in a group. So if you want to select or deselect any groups, that's going to work in here. We can select our patterns. If we take a look at the next ones, you can see that the pattern with the caret and the exclamation mark is basically the things that I showed in this video. It's also says that pattern may be numeric, attribute pattern, or group name pattern on both of these. So that I already showed. What's cool about this, we can also reference the attributes. So let's take a look at that. For referencing attributes, I created just a simple box and then created a copy node. And in the copy node, there's actually option to create a copy number attribute. So basically, for every one of the faces polygons, it's gonna give the copy and the number of it. So 8 and 7. So what we can do is put down a blast. At the most simple level, we can just, whenever you work with attributes, it's always going to be at. And we know that our attribute is named copy num. We're going to copy it. So add copy num equals, let's say, 6. So now it's going to blast the 6th one. We'll also put down just like with the primitives when creating groups, we can just put down a range 0 to 5 like that. What's cool about this, it's also inverted, didn't select it for the blast node like that. For next example, what I'm going to do is create a sphere and put down a color. And for the colors, what I'm going to do is put down a random color. Let's do it with the primitives. Let's randomize it. Let's say I want to extrude. And in a group, what I can do is extrude based on a color. So add CD, let's say, and then dot X, because we want to maybe whatever is the X. So RGB, but we can X or R. So let's say you want anything that's bigger than 0.5, like that. With this command, what we are saying, Houdini, select all the polygons that has a bigger value than 0.5. What's cool about this, you can also create the scales. So let's say we want to between 0.5 and 0.8 select. So right now it does not make because we have to put this all inside the quotes. And also the bigger one doesn't really make sense for this one. We want to equal for a range to work like that. See, now we're selecting the range. We can change them in 0.1 to 0.4. We have to select what kind of values we want. For the last part of this tutorial, I want to talk a little bit about working with strings. So when we have created these groups, we can create an actual attribute to them from the groups. Put down a name from groups node, and in here, in a group mask, just put down a question mark and asterisk like that. And what it's going to do is give every polygon a string attribute that it's called, that it's and its name is going to be the group that this primitive was inside. You can see that we have a very efficient way to give these names. We do not have individual group for each one of the groups, that we have. We just have one big name attribute that we can reference. For us to reference any of these name attribute strings, what you can do is let's put down a group, like this, and in the base group, what you can write at name, because that's the attribute we want to reference, and it's very similar to the just as regular groups. We can just want to say, let's say left, and then asterisk, like that. You see, it basically works the same way as with the just the regular group that we referenced. Left on each and the group, if you put down asterisks at both sides, put down the group. Now it's going to select both of these sides, like that. The one thing to notice is that if you have a string that is actually with many words, you can see with this, since the groups we can't actually create them with the spaces between them, with their underscores. But we can create the custom strings that has actually the space between them. If that happens, all we have to do is put this whole thing inside the quotes. So just to demonstrate it, what I have done is created two string attributes. So in the first, my string is this is my value, and another one is this might be my value. So, and they are all with the spaces, not without the underscores, like that. For us to reference any of these groups inside our group node, that you can do. And also remember that these I just created as a point, so they are in the point selection in the spreadsheet. You can find them in here. So in a small parts attribute, small parts, this might and this is my value. So for us to reference it, what we can do is just again add small parts, because this is now the attribute we want to reference. Inside it, just equals this and asterisk. So now it selects the both of them, but what if you want to select only that this is or this might be? So if you put down is, we can see that now it does not work because it is a string, and in strings there can be spaces, but in this we do not, it doesn't really understand with this, so all we have to do is just put it inside the quotes like that, and now it is just selecting this is like that, or this might like that. So that's very useful to know. To finish off this tutorial, I wanted to show some of the cool stuff you can do with this kind of setup. So what I have deleted the last one, and all I have is now the groups with the name attribute. And what I had to do is, in the last tutorial I put down, created this udim by name. All I did today, it is basically the same setup that I made this in the last tutorial. You can go check it out and create your own. You can take a look at how we automatically create udims just because of the name. So if we already have our group set up, you can just pipe it inside this. If you take a look at this and the group names like that, you can see that every one of these has its own unique udim space. So that's very cool. And also another one thing, this is cool, that you can actually explode the message based on its name attribute. To finish off this tutorial, I wanted to show one cool thing we can do. What I have done is just create these messy kinda groups. I just made them not very sensical, to be honest, but to demonstrate the thing that you can do. So these are just random groups I created, and now I put down a name. Now we have our name group, and our name attribute. Let's say we want to explode, and in explode node there's actually option to piece attribute, and we have a name. So basically what it's going to do is just every group is going to be as its own piece, going to be exploded. Even though these are connected, they are exploded separately like that. Even though we didn't even manually explode them, separated this geometry, it just did it by itself like that. And also what's cool about this, it's actually going to be, even though our UVs are the same, once we put inside our messed up groups inside udim space, what's going to do, it's actually going to cut up the geometry also, even without exploded U. What we have done is just created these these udim spaces based off groups, but at the end of it, we have also cut this geometry into pieces like that. To remedy that, if you want to still just put down a fuse, and at the default space, we're going to connect it back in, and our UV space is going to be still at the group that we created. So this is just one thing you can do, and it's very cool and powerful to use. So I think that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found something useful, and as always, I probably missed a lot of things that I wanted to talk about this, but I think this video is a good start for anyone to start to mess around with groups and make them more procedural. And so that's it. See you later, and take care.